The frog who tried to silence his voice. In the peaceful waters of Moonlily Pond lived a young bullfrog named Croakwell, whose voice could shake the cattails and ripple the water from one end of the pond to the other. When Croakwell spoke, every creature within a mile knew exactly what he had to say. His deep, resonant croak was so powerful that baby turtles would duck into their shells and dragonflies would pause mid-flight. "Must you be so thunderously loud?" complained Snappy the turtle one morning. "Some of us are trying to enjoy a peaceful breakfast." "Your voice gives me a headache," added Shimmer the fish, diving deeper to escape the sound waves. Croakwell's shoulders sagged with each complaint. He had always known his voice was different, but he'd never thought of it as a problem until the others kept pointing it out. One magical evening, as golden sunlight danced across the pond's surface, Croakwell heard the most beautiful sound he'd ever encountered. High in the willow branches, Melody the nightingale was singing her evening song, a cascade of liquid notes that seemed to turn the very air into music. Her voice was delicate as morning dew, sweet as honeysuckle, and so purely lovely that even the wind seemed to quiet itself to listen. Croakwell was mesmerized. "Now that," he whispered to himself, "is what a real voice should sound like." From that moment forward, Croakwell became deeply ashamed of his booming croak. Compared to Melody's ethereal song, his voice seemed crude and jarring like thunder interrupting a lullaby. He made a firm decision. He would never subject anyone to his awful croaking again. The next evening, when the pond community gathered for their traditional sunset chorus, the time when all the frogs shared news, warnings, and simple greetings, Croakwell remained silent. He sat on his lily pad, mouth firmly shut, while the other frogs croaked their daily updates. "Croakwell," called his neighbor, Pippin, "don't you have anything to share tonight?" Croakwell opened his mouth slightly, then thought better of it. Instead, he attempted a tiny whisper that barely disturbed the water's surface. Nobody could hear him. Days passed, and Croakwell's silence continued. He tried desperately to soften his voice, straining his throat to produce gentle sounds like melodies. But every attempt ended in failure, either complete silence or accidentally releasing his full, booming croak, which embarrassed him even more. Old Bulrush, the wisest frog in the pond, noticed Croakwell's strange behavior. The ancient amphibian had weathered countless seasons and understood the rhythms of pond life better than anyone. "Young Croakwell," old Bulrush said one afternoon, "I've noticed you've stopped joining our evening conversations. The pond feels incomplete without your voice." "My voice is too loud and ugly," Croakwell replied quietly, his usual confidence deflated. "I heard Melody the nightingale sing, and I realized how horrible I must sound to everyone." Old Bulrush's eyes grew thoughtful. "Tell me, young one, when the great storms come and the winds howl, can Melody's delicate song reach the far corners of our pond to warn creatures of danger?" Croakwell hadn't considered this. "Well, no, I suppose not." "And when the herons arrive hunting in the early morning mist, whose voice can alert every fish, turtle, and tadpole quickly enough to seek safety?" I guess mine could," Croakwell admitted reluctantly. "Every voice in nature's chorus has its purpose," old Bulrush continued gently. "Melody's song brings beauty to the evening air, but your voice brings safety and connection to our community. Both are precious gifts." But Croakwell remained unconvinced, still too embarrassed by his powerful voice to use it. His silence would soon prove costly. 3 days later, dark storm clouds gathered ominously overhead. The wind picked up, bending the cattails and churning the usually calm pond water. Old Bulrush's experienced eyes recognized the signs immediately. This wasn't an ordinary storm, but one of the dangerous flash floods that could devastate their home. As the first heavy raindrops began to fall, the water level started rising with alarming speed. The elderly frog tried to rally the pond community, but his aged voice couldn't carry over the increasing wind. Pippin and the other small frogs croaked their warnings, but their calls were swallowed by the storm's roar. Fish swam in confused circles, unaware of the approaching danger. Turtle families dozed peacefully on logs that would soon be underwater. A family of young ducklings played near the pond's edge, oblivious to the rapidly rising water that could sweep them away. Crowquell watched in growing horror as the crisis unfolded. His friends and neighbors were in real danger, and their gentle voices simply couldn't reach everyone in time. The storm was drowning out every attempt at communication. In that crucial moment, Crowquell realized that his embarrassment about his voice paled in comparison to the potential tragedy before him. Lives were at stake. This was no time for vanity or self-consciousness. Taking the deepest breath of his life, Crowquell inflated his throat and released the most powerful croak he had ever produced. The sound boomed across the entire pond like a foghorn, cutting through the storm's noise and reaching every corner of their watery world. "Flood coming!" he bellowed, his voice carrying clearly to every creature. "Seek high ground! Turtles to the rocks! Fish to the deep channels! Everyone move now!" His commanding voice organized the chaos instantly. Turtles scrambled toward higher ground, fish dove to safety, and the duckling family quickly swam to their mother. Even creatures on the distant shore heard his warning and began preparing for the rising waters. Throughout the storm, Crowquell continued his vital communication, coordinating evacuation efforts and keeping everyone informed of changing conditions. His powerful voice became the lifeline that held the pond community together during the crisis. When dawn broke and the floodwaters finally receded, grateful creatures surrounded Crowquell's lily pad. "Your voice saved my entire family," said Mama Turtle, tears of gratitude in her eyes. "I've never been so happy to hear that wonderful loud croak," added Shimmer the fish. Even Melody the nightingale flew down from her willow tree. "Dear Crowquell," she sang sweetly, "your voice is magnificent in its own way. I create beauty, but you create safety and bring communities together. We each have our own special song to offer the world." Old Bulrush smiled knowingly. "And what have you learned, young Crowquell?" Crowquell's chest swelled with newfound pride, not the arrogant kind, but the quiet confidence that comes from understanding one's true worth. "I learned that trying to silence who I am nearly silenced the help my community needed. My voice isn't too loud. It's exactly as loud as it needs to be." From that day forward, Crowquell embraced his powerful voice with joy and responsibility. He still admired Melody's beautiful songs, but he no longer wished to trade his gift for hers. Instead, he became the pond's official herald, his booming voice carrying important news, weather warnings, and messages of celebration throughout their watery world. And every evening, as Melody sang her delicate lullabies and Crowquell added his resonant bass notes to the chorus, the pond community realized that the most beautiful symphony of all comes not from voices that sound the same, but from voices that are courageously, authentically different. Moral: every voice has value. What makes you different often makes you essential.